What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode on The Black Experience. I am your host, Hermes Hagos here, and I am back with the finale, episode 4 of 4 of this Pioneer Square, amplifying Black creatives in Pioneer Square project that I've been on this journey that I've been on. And to culminate the ending of this 4-part episode, and not the project, not quite yet, is a very special guest with me today. Now, I've said that across all 3 other episodes that I've had and most other episodes that I've done on this project. Today, though, is a very special guest with a very unique background and journey and story. Today, I have someone who is a photojournalist. He's a well-known photographer, a well-known member here at Colors Studio, as well as the broader Seattle area in Pioneer Square. And he's also an award winner. Without further ado, y'all, let's put our hands together and let's bring up my friend, Mr. Beniam. What's going on, man?
What's up, man? It's a hell of an intro.
Every time, huh?
Every time, more and more dramatic.
Yeah.
What's going on? How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. How's the morning been for you?
It's been going good, man. You know, like we talked off air, training for a half marathon. So got early in the morning, got my run in, got my smoothie, got my breakfast. So yeah, ready to go. So
I'm assuming this is not your first half marathon.
It's my first.
It's your first one?
Yeah. I've ran a bunch of 5Ks and 10Ks before, but this is one of those things where I'm just like really trying to challenge myself. So yeah.
You feel like you're psyching yourself up too much?
No. That is how I attack anything. Like I try to overly prepare myself.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's kind of cool, like really like preparing myself, recovery, and watching how I eat, how I sleep. So yeah, It's been dope.
That's good, man. Well, like I was saying too before we started this, like a half marathon is actually on my bucket list of things that I want to do. Yeah. As painful as it sounds, you know.
Oh, it's painful.
Yeah, it's painful. But we both done cross country, so we know that pain, right?
Right.
But man, Beniam, thank you for taking the time, man. That was one hell of an intro because you have one hell of a story and a very unique one, man. As I've started in all 3 of my other episodes on this project, we're going to start with an icebreaker. And the icebreaker question for you is, if time or money was not an issue or a factor at all for you, where would you want to go anywhere in the world to get your photos taken? And who would that photographer be?
Oh, to get my photos taken?
To get your photos taken.
If time wasn't a problem. What a question.
Or money.
Money. Well, I would buy a time machine and go back in time and get my photos taken by Gordon Parks. Gordon Parks was one of the most renowned Black photographers during the Civil Rights era. He was the first Black photographer to shoot for Life magazine. He passed away a couple of years ago, but he shot for Muhammad Ali, Malcolm X, a wide range of Black creatives that I look up to. So it would have been an honor to get my photos, photographed by him. But realistically, if I go shoot by any other photographer, there's amazing Black photographers that I'm a fan of, and other shooters. But Joshua Kisu is an amazing photographer. He's from Ghana. He's out there in LA, but he's done some amazing projects. Definitely one of my icons. So we'll love to, get my photos shot, and it will happen. That's my guy. So, yeah, he knows I'm planting the seed in that. So, yeah.
You're speaking it, man.
Absolutely.
Speaking into existence. And where would you want it to be? Would it be in the homeland, or you got a special vacation spot?
Seeing that we're both African, it would have to be in the motherland. Yeah, for
Ethiopia.
Sure. Yeah, Ethiopia, or maybe in Ghana. Take a little step into his heritage and his
go to the West Side.
Yeah, why not? We can go bar for bar, culture for culture.
Come on, man, come on, get in both locations. So I like that, man. I think it's interesting that you said time machine, because if I were to take a time machine, if I were to answer this question, it would probably be somewhere like, I've always wanted to go to Dubai. Greece, I think, would be nice.
Yeah.
Anywhere where it's tropical and hot. Now, who would be my photographer? I'd probably say someone more local, like you or Naya, who's taking my photos, or someone in the colors. Yeah, Naya's amazing.
Fuego.
But Fuego. So we got too many options, man. Too many options.
We'll keep it in the family.
Yeah, right? Man, Beniam, man. Well, let the audience know to kick this thing off a little bit about your background, where you grew up, growing up here in Seattle, what that life looked like for you, and all that good jazz.
Yeah, like you said, I'm born and raised in Seattle. I'm homegrown. Went to Washington Middle School. Before that, I was at Thurgood Marshall Elementary, which was a predominantly black attendee students. So I think we were at like 95% black students in the whole school. So I thought that was like a normal thing to have like that many black students at your school.
Yeah.
And obviously I found that not to be the case as I got older. But I grew up in the Central District. So if anybody knows about the Central District, there's a lot of like jazz influence, a lot of arts. I was taught about, Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and, all these dope intellectuals and black creatives at such a young age, right? So I understood that, there was a deep history and deep admiration of giants that came before us. Not only just as African, but as African Americans, in this country. And I think that was what ultimately like cultivated just like how I think and how I see the world, and just be realistic on the kind of man I want to be as I got older.
I like that, man. I like that. What was your childhood growing up here in Seattle? What was that like, man? Because I know a lot of people have, an idea of what it was in the past, and I think there was a specific past that I think Seattle at the time, in the early 2000s, was like growing up. There was some violence here and there, right? But there was also that community feel. What was that kind of like life like for you growing up?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about 1998 to about 2003. So yes, there's a lot of violence. There's a lot of drugs. Seeing police, knock down my neighbor's door and, taking my neighbor's dad. I mean, like, these are things that I was just like, I wouldn't say socially acceptable, but it wasn't like, it was a normal day in my neighborhood. I grew up with a single mom. So we definitely struggled with like rent and just, who can like basically babysit me at times. So luckily I had a lot of, I won't say a lot, but I had particular other black men in the community at my school that just identified like, okay, like they would help my mom out and stuff like that, right? So whether it was like put me in poetry class or, take me to summer school or just stuff like that, like, I had a lot of assistance. So even though I was the only child and had a single mother growing up, I always felt the power of a community, right? I always felt the sense of like that's everyone's kid. That's everyone's neighbor. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, grow up in the Yesler Terrace, I grew up with all types of ethnicities: Samoans, Vietnamese, Somalis, Ethiopians, Eritreans. Like we were all just one big, I want to say family, but we were just all neighbors. You know what I mean? So like, I've understood, how to coexist with different religions and different backgrounds, and I just understood community at a very young age. Yeah. Through representation.
100%, man. And speaking of Yesler, we talked about this before, man, and I'll say it again. Yesler Terrace is the closest thing to that Asmara, Eritrea feel for me, of like my parents describing the way they grew up back home in that community feel where if you see a stranger coming by, you would invite them to your house. The closest thing that for me was Yesler. Yeah. Because everyone knew each other. And the funny thing is, not all of us were Habesha, like you said. Facts. But we still had that common connection and stuff. Yeah, there was that violence and stuff, but we still had a mutual respect for each other, and there wasn't like that. I don't know. I guess the community feel out was bigger than the fear of the other things that might happen. If you know what I mean.
That's a good way of explaining it.
And when you see Yesler these days too, it looks so much different because of the reconstruction, gentrification that's happened. But man, if it wasn't for that community center that's still standing there, I wouldn't know where I am, man. Yeah. I wouldn't know which way Harborview is, which way Bailey Gatzer, all that area is. You know what I mean? It's changed so much, but shout out to that. In my introduction, I talked about you being a photojournalist and a photographer, a well-known person here in Pioneer Square area. Your journey began at 9 years old. And I remember when I was reading about you, there was that painting back home in your aunt's house in Ethiopia that was really your first kind of artwork. through poetry and acting is how you started. Walk us through a little bit what that timeline looked like for you, what life looked like for you then, and kind of your thought process of when you were first starting out.
Yeah, so my introduction to the arts was more like, it wasn't even a hobby. It was more just like to distract me, right? So when I was a kid, I was very energetic, very hyper. I was always into a lot of different things. And so in school, I was one of those kids that was like, I would finish all my homework and classworks like super early, and I would just like distract the other students. Like I wasn't like, I guess you can call me a class clown, but I was just like, I'd be bored. So when I'm bored, I'm talking to other kids and like they're not finishing their work. So it became in a situation where, my principal at Thurgood Marshall Elementary, Mr. Wright, he was able to identify, and not just me, but other black students that kind of possess similar qualities. And he kind of spearheaded this project called Write It Academy. And it was every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. And we would meet at the school for like 4 hours. And we would just have, like, each of us students would have like an older man mentor. So it'd be, a white man or a black man or whatever. And all these men were volunteering their time. And it would sit with us and it would just like make us write down our notes or our thoughts. So like, how do we feel today? How was our week? And we would do it in poetry form. We would do it in just a journal form or whatever. But they wanted to help us express ourselves. Now that I'm older, I kind of understand like the benefits of that. But man, I did not like that. I hated it. I want to watch Saturday morning cartoons. I'm 8, 9 years old at the time. Third grade. And my mom didn't really understand it, but she was just like, she heard Saturday morning in school and was like, "You're going." You're going. Yeah. So it didn't take long for me to kind of like, this is when I was into hip hop and stuff like that. So I would like bust it into rhymes, but then they were teaching me like, rhyming is poetry. And then I was like, what? And then they're like, yeah, you don't always have to rhyme every line too. So I started learning like the haiku and stuff like that, and it got to a point where like, I'm doing spoken words in front of like the school. Then I'm doing it in front of like the mayor, and we're going to different events, different corporate events. Yeah, like Starbucks event, and evening shows with a few hundred people, and they'll give me like a little gift card or whatever like that. So that's kind of how like my introduction to not just the arts was, but like even like spoken words or like public speaking. So I was possessed like that level of confidence in myself, and that was kind of how I got introduced into the arts. And then from then on, like I tried theater and I've tried acting, and I went a couple of years in middle school and high school where I didn't even touch anything about the arts. I would just write down, journaling and stuff like that, and like different rhymes. I didn't get into photography until 2018.
It's pretty recent.
Yeah, so there was a significant gap where I was just not actually practicing anything in the arts. Yeah. Right. Because I never saw a career in it, right? I went the school route and graduated and everything like that. But it got to a point when I graduated college, had my big boy job, bills were paid, family was proud, but I didn't feel fulfilled, bro. I felt like there's something more out there that I need to be doing or chasing or impacting. Right. And it took about 2 or 3 years of trying different things. Like I've tried everything, bro. The piano, I tried painting, I took singing lessons, because I knew it was something in the act of expressing myself, right? And then, ultimately through the Up and Up, we were about a year in. If anybody knows, I'm the director of videography with the Up and Up. But I started getting more into cameras, and then once I learned how to use a camera, then I was able to find my voice through visual storytelling.
Wow.
So that's ultimately like the whole journey.
Yeah, man. There's so much in there. Was there a moment when photography stood out from acting, from from all the other things that you tried? Like you were like, yeah, photography might be it for me.
I wouldn't say it's a moment because, I would say there was a few moments, but when I started it, I struggled, right? Like my photos came out decent. Like people were like, yo, this is a great photo. And I was like, okay. I didn't see it. You know what I mean? I understood angles because I very much love film and cinema. But I think until I started studying like the actual art of photography and like the history behind it, and all the dope black giants that came before me is when I started really formulating like my own thoughts and my own visions and like kind of what I want to express, because I could see myself getting good at it, but I was like, what message am I trying to say or portray?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to just do it just to do it. You know what I mean? And I think once I was able to study like the past and the history, I was able to kind of formulate my own journey in my own lane, right? Because honestly, everyone that's good at something at some point try to mimic somebody great.
Right.
And then from then on, you got better in your craft, and then you're able to have your own ideas and your own vision, right? So I definitely use, that's why I mentioned Gordon Parks earlier, right?
Yeah.
Or like Ernest Withers and other amazing photographers that, 70, 80 years before my time, right?
100%.
And might not have got the recognition that they got. So, I saw myself becoming a beacon of their influence.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
this is why like representation can be like a takeoff platform for you.
Right.
Gives you that extra first step, and then from there you find your own voice.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, man, that is definitely something, man. Do you feel like there's a there's a lie out there where when people think about what their purpose is, they have an idea of once you find your purpose, it's all easy. It's gonna be easy. There's no heartaches or anything like that because it's what you're meant to do. Do you feel like that's a lie, or do you feel like there's some truth to that? How would you answer that?
I think there's a little bit of truth to. Okay, here I'll put it like this. From my own experience, when I was not able to find my passion, the act of seeking for it was alone a struggle, right? It's very frustrating to from the optics, like I'm doing well, right? From your family's standard or society or everything like that, but internally you're not happy. And that alone is its own battle. And it could be a layered battle of that, right? Of just like identity crisis, or just like trying to fulfill yourself, and just, being a black man in America. Like there's layers to that alone.
Oh, 100%.
And then I would say finding your passion, the act of expressing that alone is difficult to other people who may not get it, right?
Yeah.
And then, two, obviously do enough of your passion to get good at it in a way where, you have this sense of prideness in what you do and how you express yourself. And then 3, raising capital, right? Like being in the arts doesn't always pay the bills, you know what I mean? So being passionate is about anything that you do is ultimately what? Like, I'm doing this with or without money. This is what I love to do. If you're able to make capital on it, great.
Right.
You know what I mean? But like that's ultimately what a passion is. So
Yeah.
I think there's a struggle in both ways that you look at it. And the way I see it is like I'd rather struggle in something that I want to do or like to do, want to get better at. Because either way, you're gonna struggle.
And you're gonna last longer trying to go for that.
You're right.
Right? Because if you like it, you still see that end line, that finish line, right? So 100%, man. This episode is the culmination of my project that I'm doing here in Pioneer Square. And Beniam, man, you grew up in the heart of Pioneer Square. Yester Terrace is not too far from here, from where we are here at Colors on First Ave. Tell us a little bit about how your work currently, you got into photography in 2018. How has your work kind of added to the culture, to the vibe here at Pioneer Square? And has Pioneer Square as a whole and the culture and vibe here given you anything to play off of in your photography?
Yeah, I mean, Pioneer Square has a deep, deep history in the arts, right? With Art Walk and the different types of artists that may not live here, but do represent their arts here, right? And Colors, thankfully, is located in the heart of Pioneer Square. So right now we're in June. So last April, I visited Tigray, Ethiopia for 2 weeks. And, I took my camera with me, and I was able to document the entire experience. And during that time, it was Easter. So, I mean, as you know, Easter is a very, very huge holiday back in East Africa. Like, everyone is fasting, right? You can't go to the restaurant and order, like, non-vegan options. So it was my first time being back there during Easter. And when I came back, the first thing I wanted to do was just highlight my trip. But I didn't want it to just do only social media. Like, I wanted people to really experience the trip the way I did, or at least close to experience the way I did. So shout out to Armando, you know, the founder of Colors, and he was like, "Yo, you should do an art walk here." And I've done similar shows like in Pioneer Square, but you know, with this one, because the trip was that impactful and a lot of eyes were watching my social media when I was there, you know, I was like, all right, let's do it. So we were able to plan it out. We had a huge marketing campaign rollout of it. I went on Converge Media to promote the show. And we had it last June, so we just hit the 1 year mark, and over 380 people showed up. Wow. I was one of the solo Black artists to headline Art Walk and have that many attendees. You know, so shout out to San Juan for sponsoring that. Shout out to Panda Lab for sponsoring my prints. Shout out to Colors for offering the space. So it was definitely a collective experience, and it wasn't my way of like adding to Pioneer Square. It was my way of bringing my culture to Pioneer Square, right? When I think of Pioneer Square, I think of a huge lack of representation, if we're being honest, Black and brown creatives. And I think when it comes to our people, we always have the spark to make something dope. Big corporations and big companies, they don't necessarily have the spark, but they can take that idea and manifest to a bigger ideology. And I was kind of challenging myself to kind of do both. Yeah. To have the spark and then to really bring in brands that I know that, you know, wanna kind of be a part of something that they haven't done before. Right. And then we make it big ourselves. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I think that's the most representation you can have as an artist, you know, from the CD or from Pioneer Square, because you know, I'm definitely homegrown, and I'm definitely able to connect with all these different brands in a way that they haven't seen before. You know what I mean? So that was kind of like, I don't want to say my coming out party, but that was kind of where I was like, okay, like I'm more than just a photographer. Like, you know what I mean? I can tap in with these brands, these events, and I can negotiate contracts. And we ain't going nowhere.
It was at that point that I feel like the business owner in you, you know, the negotiator, the proud Habesha who's highlighting what the photos he took when he went back home. Right. Man, I saw those photos. That was actually the first photos that I saw on your Instagram when I started following you. And when I saw that, something told me, man, in the future, I got to do some kind of podcast there, go back home or something, because...
You should.
Was that emotional for you?
Very emotional. Yeah, it was... and I think it showed through the images, right? Like, yeah. I mean, I cried on that trip. I laughed on that trip. I was in my thoughts. My journaling was at an all-time high when I was on it, because I was documenting every day, like, how I felt in real time. You know what I mean? So, you know, the way I see photographs, I never try to, when I'm capturing people, I never try to position them in a way that I don't want to. I kind of want to capture it in their natural element, right? So you can see that through how people are perceiving me with the camera, right? And they're more comfortable than I thought they would be. You know what I mean? Because they could tell, like, I'm from America, right? Yeah. 6'1", nose ring, covered in tattoos. But I think it's just dope having the people connect to it in an organic way, because this is how I see, you know, the world through my lens, and I wanted people here to kind of see that same experience. Right. And I mean, you can see how people felt during the show. Some people were crying, some people were laughing, some people were inspired. I mean, I got all types of emotions, and that's literally was the goal. Like, I wanted to get a wide range of emotions out of the show. If you do that, like, I mean, that's like every storyteller's like biggest goal, right? It's like you feel and hear all range of the scope. So
100%. Beniam, man, you've been featured. Well, first of all, locally, you're very well known. You've been featured on many news outlets, and you're also an award winner of the Man on My Shirt, MLK, at your time in WSU. You know, you won I'm going to say right here, the MLK Junior Community and Social Equity Award at your time at WSU, Washington State University. You can say go Cougs if you want. I don't mind it,
I don't
bro.
need to.
I always hear it, man. I'm surprised you haven't said it. Actually, they always say it, bro.
Yeah, it's definitely Colts vibes.
Seriously, man. But what's next for Beniam, man?
Yeah, so what next is I'm actually doing this nice little pivot with going away from stationary photographs at the moment. So let me backtrack. I read this book called The Artist's Way. The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. It's an amazing book. If you are any type of creative, and even if you're not, read that book. And that book was gifted to me during a really rough time in my period about a couple of years ago. And one of the segments in the book was to challenge yourself creatively, you have to intentionally put yourself in uncomfortable situations. And not just situations, experiences, right? So I told myself I would do 3 things that I told myself I would not do when I started my photography journey. And it was getting in front of more in the camera because I wanted to showcase just my talent in photographs, right? So like now that I feel like I'm at a point where I can get more in front of the camera to challenge myself with modeling, with acting, auditioning. So that's one component. And then 2, I touched upon it earlier, like training for a half marathon, right? Like want to make sure like my body's right, like my mental's right, because it's not more than just your output, but your input into your body.
Right.
So both of these things kind of feed into each other. And then my third part is getting more into my script writing. So really evolving my background in poetry and journaling. And I've seen the evolution of script writing. So I used to work for the Seattle Storm on their media team 2 seasons ago. And, you know, people thought I was like the in-house photographer, which I was, but I did a lot more script writing and script developing and directing talents on what to say and like where they should sit on camera.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what, like I should really look into directing, right? Because I think as a photographer, you do more behind the scenes than you do when the final product is ready to go, right? So that's kind of what's next for me, man, is doing more short films, more documentaries. You're going to see me more in front of the camera. You know, I passed some auditions, signed some NDAs, so I can't say nothing yet. But, yeah, I definitely got some things in motion for sure. Just to really challenge myself creatively, to not put myself in a box. And I know that when I have my mind set on any project or any type of, like, goal, I'm all in. Mm-hmm. So... yeah, excitement is in the future.
Yeah, I can feel it, man. Yeah. I really do, man. And I think that's exciting, man. I think telling your story and then being able to allow others to tell their story through photography, through whatever it is, I think is the most powerful thing.
I mean, it's different mediums. And I'm really challenging myself to be a visual storyteller, right? Like, I don't necessarily always tell people I'm a photographer because I feel like I can tell your story in different ways. Mm-hmm. And that comes from ultimately telling my story in different ways, right? Like, I feel like if you're a visual storyteller, if you can't tell your story, how could you tell somebody else's, right? So whether if it's through writing or through visuals or through verbally communicating that, like, I'm always trying to challenge those part of my muscle of, like, expressing yourself, right? Like, communication ultimately is the foundation of all these mediums.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
One way or another.
Exactly. So, just trying to challenge myself to be a more intentional artist, a more well-rounded artist. And I think with my connections and the resources and the skill sets that I possess, man, it's only a matter of time.
It is, yeah. Yeah, seriously. On my way here, there was one thing that I wanted to shout out that I wanted to see if you tapped into it. Man, I don't remember the name, but it was... 2 guys in Yesler that they did a documentary. It was almost like a little mini movie where they were growing up in Yesler with police brutality, the Yesler experience around Garfield. One of the guys was named Joseph. Joseph was a little bit younger than me, but he, I don't remember what it was called, man. But once I find it, I'll send it to you. But they did like a documentary in 2022. And then last November is when it came out and people were watching it.
The Habesha kids?
Yeah, 2 Habesha kids.
I forgot what the film was called, but one of my best friends made a cameo. He was like the uncle taxi driver in there.
Oh, yeah.
Otto.
Yeah, always smoking?
Yeah. I haven't actually seen it, but I know it got, they had some film festivals around it.
Yeah.
and everything like that. So yeah.
Well, they showcased it in Bellingham.
Okay.
And I went there. I was tabling at the event, and they had the director and I think like someone else on the board that helped make that film possible. And they had like a whole Q&A afterwards.
Yeah, that's dope.
So
yeah,
it just brought back memories.
If they ever do a sequel, you know who to hit up.
Yeah, y'all better hit up Beniam, man, considering what he's done. Well, Beniam, man, we are at the deep end of the podcast. Okay. And this is where I like to ask my guest the favorite question of mine, the ultimate question, the advice question. Amidst everything that you've been through and done, Beniam, what advice would you give to the younger generation of Black creatives on the come up right now that are trying to express themselves and tell their story through their own medium?
Yeah, I think to any youth out there that wants to get into the arts, I think the number one thing you have to really invest in is the communication, right? Like, you know, ultimately where I'm at right now in life and the way I'm able to articulate myself and communicate with different people and different backgrounds, not only just the arts, but just in everyday conversations, you know, it started with years and years and years of repetition, right? And we're talking about whether if it's journaling or writing or therapy, different exercises. Like, I'm a firm believer of evolving, right? And I don't see myself doing photography forever, right? Just like how I wasn't working in IT forever, or how I wasn't playing basketball forever. I thought I was going to the NBA. You know what I mean? Like, it's like the act of evolving and always challenging yourself and growing. And putting yourself in uncomfortable situation takes a high level of self-awareness and maturity that I didn't always have. Like, this isn't the version of Beniam that was this in my 20s or when I was when I was younger than that. You know what I mean? It's years of understanding yourself and seeing what the type of man that I wanted to be. And, you know, if you have mentors, amazing. If you don't, try to find someone that looks like you or used to be like you when they were younger and ask them very intentional questions. You know what I mean? So, you know, luckily I have, you know, a fraternity to lean on, and I have, you know, other great resources of people that I met along my journey that have become my mentors. I also mentee a lot of young Black and brown students. You don't got to make a certain amount of money or have some type of success to try to like reach out. You know what I mean? And I think that's where we get the game kind of messed up. Like, oh, you haven't made it yet, so you can't mentor nobody. That's not accurate, right? So I would say challenge yourself to increase your level of communication and the way you express yourself and how you connect with people. And then if ultimately you find your passion or you find what you're good at or you want to be good at, ultimately those are going to connect with each other naturally.
Right.
You know what I mean? So never try to wait for some end goal or end product. You can change yourself at any given time. And then once you get to a certain level, then you can see your impact changing others or influencing others in positive ways. Yeah. And that's kind of how I've been rocking. It's been working for me. And then even when I'm going through or struggling or whatnot, like the impact is still there. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, feel free to reach out to me on social media. I'm not like super anti people, so hit me up.
He's a great photographer. Well, Beniam, thank you so much for your time today, and it's been an honor. Where can people find you? What is your Instagram, your handle, your website, anything else that you want to throw out there?
Yeah, people want to hit me up. I'm on Instagram at Beniam_Y, BENIAM_Y. And then if you want to email me, I'm at byvisualsproduction@gmail.com. My website is byvisuals.com, byvisualsproduction.com. So yeah, hit me up. Let's connect. I'll hear your ideas, and if it makes sense, we can definitely rock out.
Come on. Beniam, man, appreciate you again so much. And yeah, thank you for being a part of this project and this culmination, man. It's been an honor, and I hope everyone enjoyed these past 4 episodes. It has been an honor. This is not the only project, so stay tuned for more opportunities of creatives that I'll keep bringing on. And thank you for rocking with me, everybody, for 2.5 plus years of this podcast. Stay tuned for more as the Black experience rolls on. Till next time, y'all. Peace. What is up, y'all? Thank you so much for tuning in to that episode. Make sure to click the subscribe, follow button, as well as the bell to get notified on all my new content that is coming out every Wednesday and every other day. And make sure to click that link in the description down below to get access to all my socials and any other platforms that I have my podcast on. And until next time, y'all, peace.